Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin.
I can't hear you. There you go. Solo show.
Sin, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, you good. Okay, did we lose Devon?
Maybe you should invite him back in, yeah.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, so let's see. I always love when it tweaks us. Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay,
Great.
perfect. Okay. I always love when it does that, when it gives the little, hello, good morning. So welcome back to YNS Live with NFL Thread. Pivot here live on Fireside. We are so excited for this episode. Devon Kennard, welcome to Fireside.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know Cynthia has this wonderful introduction that she's going to give, and then we're going to dive into the story. I cannot wait.
Yes, I am. Well, Devon, it really is exciting for me personally to have you on Pivot. My husband, Michael, played with your dad, in Arizona. And so Mommy was named you Devon. And my daughter, I had Devon listed for one of her names. And when I met you as a baby, I was like, I can't name her Devon. That's kind of weird. We hang out together. So Aiden's name is Aiden because of you.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's a small world.
It's a small world. And Daddy
it.
was just like, every time he saw my husband, he'd say, Z, give me some lovin', Z. And he would make all of us smile, and my kids adored, your mom and dad, so it's really amazing for me to see you grown and you doing all the amazing things you're doing after a 10-year NFL career of your own and a book. It all adds up. So it does all add up. So thank you for coming. It's really a really beautiful moment for me, and I'm really excited to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I didn't know that backstory, so that's really cool. I'm gonna have to tell my dad.
Yeah, and tell your mom, she'll giggle. Yeah, we had a lot of fun together.
And this is why I love doing this, because I mean, you could just feel Cynthia's energy. You could feel how excited she is. She can, she's known you since you were little. She's followed you. She's followed your dad. And then to see what you've done with your career and then how you pivoted, and what we're passionate about is really giving this platform for players that maybe you're not thinking about life after football. We've talked to so many different players, and of course, it's not something when you're passionate about something and you love something. Why do you want to think about life after? But in reality, you kind of have to, right? So we are excited to dive into this. I know that you're a real estate investor. You definitely were a forward thinker, and I would love, what I love is the stories. Stories connect us. So what I'm really excited is to kind of find out where that all came from, where that grit, where that kind of forward thinking came, because not everyone is born with it. And so if you can just give us a little background about yourself, and then we'll get into all the pivots that, you have done in your life, because you're young, I could say.
Yeah. Well, people ask me that often, like, oh, what made me get into stuff outside of football and stuff. But having a father that played, I was young when he retired. I was like 97, I think his last year was, won the Super Bowl in 96. So for me, I saw my dad most post football. So it was kind of ingrained with me as I was growing up, is like, as much as I want to follow in his footsteps and become, a pro athlete and have a career, my dad ended up playing 13 years professionally, and he still lived far longer after that than, he played. So it gave me a realistic view of like, man, there's a lot of, even if it plays out perfect for me, there's a lot of life left once I'm done playing. So I always had that mindset of like, all right, I want to make sure that I'm in position to live the life on my terms long after I retire, and, not be some of the horror stories you hear about. And, in high school and college, I started to face adversity that kind of began to question whether I was going to make it professionally or how long of a career I was going to have. And, it made me ask myself a pivotal question, like, do I want to be successful because of football, or do I want to be successful, period? And, for me, once I made the decision, it's like, there's certain things I want in my life, and I've always envisioned them coming from the game of ball. But if not, I still want them. I still want to be able to live life on my terms and find success and be driven and live comfortably. And, all these things that I've always dreamed of really come down to freedom. And, football was the vehicle that I thought was going to get me there. But if not, I needed to figure out what else. And once I had that mindset, it kind of got its hooks in me. And I was like, I got to figure this out.
I think this is so, for me, you're talking about generational differences in players' mindset. Like, I know, like, your dad, and I know that whole generation, and my husband, their idea was, I don't want to line up next to a guy who's thinking about something else. I want to line up to a guy who's only thinking about the game. And to break that mindset, it's really interesting. And I'm sure that's been a passion for you, and purpose for you to help current players think otherwise. Like, you can think about life after the game while you're playing the game. And how do you do that? How did you navigate that? And how do you help others learn to change their mindset?
It was hard early on. When I first got in the league 10 years ago, it was kind of taboo. You didn't really show interest in other stuff other than football. I think it's evolving, and it's more acceptable now, more now than ever. So I think that's great. But overall, it's been an issue for a long time. And it was a hurdle I had to get over, because it's like, I'm starting to learn about these things, have other interests. But, you get the whole comment like, oh, Devon, you're locked into your real estate stuff. You must not be focused. And I would take that personally, because, I take the game very seriously. But there's only so many hours in a day that you can focus on football. And whether you're recognizing them or not, you're doing other things. Whether you're the guy who likes to be in the club and you're, partying and traveling, or, like, you got the video games guys, you got the guys that, smoke a lot of weed, like, whatever your thing is, you're spending your time one way or another. This is how I've chosen to spend my time. So why is it looked upon as bad? because it's this. So, once I started really reiterating that notion and earning the respect in the locker room, because it never impacted the effort that I was putting on the football field, my studies. Football is the main thing. You always hear keep the main thing the main thing, and I feel like I've done a good job of that my entire career. But when I've gotten a few hours of training in, when I'm eating well, when I'm doing all the things I need to be doing, there's still hours in the day, and how am I spending them? And I think that's the question that players need to ask themselves.
I think that's so cool. And I love that so much because it really is, it's a mindset. And as you said, we all can have a number of different passions. I mean, we are, a lot of people have a number of different passions, and it's the way you kind of decompartmentalize. that got a little tongue tied there. But I know you know what I mean. In your brain is really important. So when you entered college, did you kind of go thinking, okay, I'm going to study a certain route, or was it like, I want to focus on football and get a degree? Because I know, we all know like you can get a degree in school and it doesn't have to be what you end up doing in life. And, obviously, unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something very specific. So if you can take us through that a little bit, because I think that's important for people as they enter college to kind of think, okay, where your mindset was then.
So my mindset was literally, I don't know exactly what I wanted to do once I got into college. So I wanted to pick a major that I feel like can apply and help me in whatever avenue that I was going to pursue. So I had interest in business, but had no idea what I've always been told I do good in interviews and I communicate well. So I was like, maybe the broadcast thing. So I chose communication, and my mindset in college was I'm going to get as much school done as possible because it's free, and I'm going to USC, which is $70,000+ a year. So, I always got confused with guys who hated school, so wouldn't go to class, would fail classes. I'm like, you're making yourself have to do more school, because if you fail the class, all they're going to do is make you take it again. So my mindset was like, I'm going to pass my classes, do as well as I can, and finish as fast as I can, so I never have to go back. So, for me, having that mindset right from the onset, like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a major that can apply to a lot of different things, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to take a full load every semester and in the summer, because this is a 3 to 4.5 time period of my life, no matter what. And I want to be able to say I got as much done as possible. And having that mindset, I was able to graduate in my undergrad in 3 years and my master's in a year and a half. So I'm one of the few guys that was like drafted in the NFL and had their undergrad and master's degrees. And a lot of people always assume like I'm super smart because of it. And I'm not the smartest in the person in the room 90% of the time, but I will put the effort in. And I think there's a difference between what's mandatory and what's necessary. And everybody's supposed to do the mandatory things, go to class, all that. But for me, it's like, I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to ask my teachers questions. I'm going to make sure I understand and I actually study for the test and do things like that. And it's always just worked out for me and put me in a position to be successful.
The fact that you got your master's in that time period when, a lot of other players are using that redshirt year just to get acclimated, to take it easy, and you kind of put it in gear. You say mandatory, you say necessary, and then there's just smart. I mean, the fact that you have your master's, look at that. And that can take you anywhere. And then you'll probably go on to your doctorate someday, because that's what you do. So that's fantastic. What did everybody say at home? Like, how proud at USC? You just excelled at USC. What was that experience like for you?
I think my parents were proud all the way along, but my college career wasn't all peaches and rainbow. I was not drafted by Pete Carroll, and he sat in my living room and told my family and I he wasn't going to leave. And after my freshman year, he dipped to Seattle. So, got punched in the mouth in that. And then new coaches came in with Lane Kiffin. They started changing my position. I'm more of a pass rusher, but we didn't have good linebackers. So they tried to move me to middle linebacker. So I'm out of position. And the whole middle part of my career was really choppy. Like I had a lot of injuries, a lot of position changes. So going into my redshirt senior year, it was like, is he going to make it? is he going to play professionally? He's injury prone. Oh, he hasn't had a breakout season, et cetera, et cetera. And, I just went into that last year with the mindset of like, I told myself I'm going to glorify God, I'm going to be relentless, and I'm going to have fun. And if I do those 3 things every day, then however the cards fall, I'll be able to look myself in the mirror and be proud of what I see. So, I kind of went in with that perspective, because while I was in college, to be honest with you, there started to become a lot of, bitterness. And it's like, I felt like I always worked harder than everyone else. And like, why are the cards falling for me the way they are? I made the proper sacrifices. I'm not out on the road partying every night. I'm making sure my work is done first. I'm putting extra work in on the football field. Like, I feel like I'm putting more in than a lot of people, but it's playing out way better for them. And I went through periods of resentfulness in college. And that's why that last year I kind of had to reset and was like, you know what, like when you're bitter like that and you're resentful and you kind of living pissed off all the time, you're not hurting anybody but yourself. And, I kind of changed my mindset and, went off, had a great last year and put myself in a position to get drafted. And here we are today.
Right.
I love that. And I think I love that you shared that for so many reasons. I was like screaming, like I know Cynthia knows that I was, because we all think, right, you get to the NFL and you didn't have the bumpy road, right? Everyone has a story. Everyone has trauma. Everyone has bumpy roads. It's how you show up in those roads and how you see and change your mindset. And we all have those times where we're down. And I think, again, it's really important for people to listen to that, because there's people that are born, and I really believe this, with the kind of the innate confidence or in the innate positive, right? Like I see the positive in everything. I mean, my teenagers are, sometimes laugh at me and they're like, oh my gosh, you see the positive in everything. But there's people that are born that way, right? And other people have to work to do that. But when you go through those down times, what I always say is so important is that's when you really learn. That's when you see who you are and how you're going to show up when you're in those down times. And do we always show up in those down times brilliantly? No. But when you look back at those times, when you can say, you know what? Wow, that was really tough. But now I kind of see the lessons I learned in there and I see where I can go forward. And now I'd see where I can also talk and help to other people. Can you kind of take us through when you, if you did, like have that kind of aha moment? Like, as you said, you changed that mindset, but was it ever, and you maybe still haven't seen it, but like when you look back at that, do you see the lessons that you learned in those really, really tough times where you are now?
Yeah, well, coming out of high school, I'm the guy who had a father who played in the NFL. I grew up in Phoenix. I was always a really good athlete. Like, some would word it as like, oh, silver spoon living. Like, oh, pro football dad, great athlete. I got good grades. Like, life was about as smooth sailing as you can ask. And then I tear my ACL my senior year of high school. I go to college, start facing all kinds of adversity. The coaching changes. So, at hindsight, looking at it, once I got into the league and a big piece of what got me drafted, I remember I talked with Tom Coughlin, who was the head coach of the Giants when they drafted me, and they were extremely impressed with our board work when I came in for a visit. And there was 3 other guys who were on the visit with me, and they drew up all these plays. And I remembered them, and it was like cover 3 schemes. I don't know how deep into football you guys know, but I had to like draw up what it was, what everybody was doing. But I not only knew my position, but all the positions around me. And all the other guys in my that played my position that were there, they bombed that. And, so it was like the things that the adversity I faced in college, changing positions, being injured, it prepared me for that moment, because I had to change positions, I got to see football from a different lens. When you're just a pass rusher, you're rushing the passer. All you're paying attention to is the tackle and the running back and the quarterback, pretty much. Like, that's your line of sight. When I had to step off the ball, I started to understand what the whole line is doing in front of me, what my DBs are doing behind me, and it helped me understand the game of football. And once I got into the league, I was able to do a multitude of different things at a high level, and I had to play in different schemes and different positions, and that's how I got my start in the NFL. And I ended up starting as a rookie in the NFL because I was smart. I wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, but I was a rookie who was in the right place at the right time, making the right plays. And it extremely impressed everyone around me because I wasn't making a lot of mistakes. I was learning from the mistakes that I did make, and I just wasn't acting as a rookie. That's the kind of dialogue I was getting. And then it was just funny because it was like I'm here and in this position, and they're saying these things about me, and I'm about to start as a rookie 5th-round draft pick because of the trials and tribulations I faced in college, which I thought was my downfall. So it's just kind of full circle once I got in the league and I started to develop, and even to this day, I can I was cut mid-season from the Cardinals this last year. I go to Baltimore right in the middle of the season. They had injuries. And I got to look at the playbook for 2 days, and I started and played 35 snaps in a matter of 2 practices. And it's because of my knowledge of the game, but I set that foundation in college with what I was going through. So I would say, like, hindsight, I'm like, man, it sucked then, but I just needed to trust my journey because that was what actually propelled me to the point I'm at today.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I know the chills that I just had, because that's exactly what it is. That's what set you up. God put you in those positions to really struggle, to then see the hindsight. Cynthia, I know you wanted to say something, but that just is amazing.
Yeah, I think that, like, what you're saying, it almost frustrates me a little bit, and we're not sure of the outcomes, but I was just curious what your take on the portal system is and what this is doing to a lot of players who, like yourself, are in situations where they're not happy, so they leave. And then I always wonder, like, what if they stayed? What if they fought through? What if they learned something from it? And where are they going to end up if they are jumping and jumping and jumping? Yeah. What is your take on that?
My kind of like take on that would be, it's very circumstantial and different. I think some kids are out there, they're running from the work. Quite frankly, like, if stuff's not peachy, if they're not starting right away, if it's not going, they're running from it. And there is some situations in some cases where, you got to go and find a better opportunity or a better situation for yourself. But I think there's far too many kids just running from circumstances. And, I was always the kind of person that's like, I came here, I made a commitment, and I'm gonna earn my way. I wanted to defy the odds. I wanted to overcome the adversity. There was times where I did think about transferring, and there was times where I'm like, did I make the right decision? I should have went to University of Texas. That was another top pick. Cal Berkeley. They weren't that good at the time, but I was gonna be their, like, golden child if I decided to go there. I'm like, I had second guess, but ultimately, year after year, it was really my sophomore and junior year, I ultimately was like, you know what, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna earn it. I don't care what position they put me out. I'm gonna beat the guy out, and I'm gonna take advantage of my circumstances no matter what. And I don't think enough kids these days have that mentality. But there is a balance of knowing, okay, this is really not a good situation for me. I need to go find a better one. So I don't know where that teeters. I can understand both sides, but I think there's too many people kind of quitting too early.
Gotcha.
And that's so much in life, right? With anything, when we quit too early, we don't see the end of that. And so that takes me, because I know we're I know we're short on time with you, not short on time, but we have a time thing, and I want to get into what you're doing right now. But being an entrepreneur also, right? People sometimes quit right before the gold is happening, right before like the magic happens. And I think that's too much with people. It's like, it's hard, I'm out. That's where you learn in those hard spots when life kind of sucks, right? When you're kind of like, what am I doing? There's sometimes you just see all of a sudden this, like, okay, this is what God was meant, and this is why I needed to stick it out. But it's hard to do that. So if you can kind of take us into what you're doing now and how that kind of evolved and kind of played out.
Now and while you play and now.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
I'm in my 9th year. I just finished my 9th year, going into my 10th year in the NFL. And I'm blessed to be in a position where I want to play one more year, mostly to hit 10, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I just feels more whole. But I'm also in a position where I'm not going to just take anything. I want the right situation, the right opportunity. I have 2 young girls at home, a lot of things going on off the field. And I don't want to go into a situation that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So it's like, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then, I'm ready to move on. But what's interesting, with my journey while I've been in the NFL is like, figuring out the ways to invest that's going to make sense for me. And I kind of went against the grain. Once I got into the league, most guys and most of the locker room conversations that was happening, guys are getting financial advisors, they're stock market guys, essentially. They're just teaching that. And the issue that I was seeing is like, you're putting all this money in the stock market, you retire and you need cash flow to live. And the stock market wasn't consistently providing you that because, okay, the stock market goes down 20%, but you still live off of $200,000 a year. Well, you got to draw that out regardless. And now that's hurting your investment portfolio even more because the math wasn't mathing to me. So I was like, what do I need to do or how can I invest? And I kept learning and figuring out. And I kind of came to real estate, but kind of prematurely while I was in college. Where I got the idea for real estate was I was always networking and I met a guy who owns thousands of units in Los Angeles. And I talk about this in my book. And I sat down with him and he started out as a teacher and then a police officer, bought one property, then turned it in, bought another one, rented that one and kept doing that and started owning thousands of units, apartment complexes, was managing it. And my mindset when I got into the league was like, if that dude was able to do that off of a police officer salary, then even if I play 1 year and get a nest egg of a couple $100,000, that's a jump start for me to do something similar. And it was kind of motivation for me. And then I got into the league and, that's where the whole stock market, and I was like, it kind of drew me back to real estate because I was like, I can build enough income in that sustains my lifestyle. So when I'm done playing, I'm not spending down my principal and I'm still living life on my terms. So man, maybe I start investing this way now, build it up. And then by the time I'm ready to retire, I'm in a position where I'm playing because I want to, not because I have to. And I have enough income in to replace, the lifestyle that I want. So there's no pressure. And, that kind of became my vision. So at first I was like, all right, let me get to $10,000 a month. Then let me get to $15,000 a month of passive income. And then, once I started to hit those markers, I'm like, okay, let me take off with this. How, where can I push it? And along the way, I just started to really believe in the concept. And I'm like, I felt like this is the solution for a lot of players financially, because the biggest issue is guys create an expensive lifestyle and don't have any income coming in. So you make millions of dollars, but if you're spending hundreds of thousands a month, you can do the math pretty quickly on how fast you're going to run out of your money. And if you're not investing in a way to replace that, then you're, it's not if, but when. So once I figured that out, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Well,
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, what I think is so important too is, not only you're talking about, sustaining your lifestyle, and not are you talking about avoiding dipping into your savings, but you also created a career for yourself. So now you already know like what you're good at, which is always so scary in transition. What am I going to do? What am I good at? You're already learning along the way. So you're already creating this second career for yourself. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think what's important to note with that is like, man, in college and in the NFL, a lot of guys act like they're too cool. Like they're like, oh, I'm too cool to try to like network with this business guy or pick his brain or, like I don't got time for that. And I'm like, this is the time to do it because I realized pretty quickly while I was in the NFL, I can get a meeting with dang near whoever I wanted. Like I can put myself in position. So let me leverage that, open as many doors, figure out the things that I'm interested in and get the ball rolling because look at how they're looking at you. One, you're a professional athlete. So it's like cool for them to say, oh, I took a meeting with the pro athlete or I'm friends with the pro athlete. I do this and that with the pro athlete. Two, they're looking at you as a potential investor, someone they could do something with because they know you have capital. So that doesn't mean you have to do that, but leverage the fact that they're looking at you with eyes of, oh, he's an equal in some way because he can invest in the things that I'm doing, or he can actually, it's not like, oh, I'm just asking you to teach me. I'm asking you to teach me because I have the money to where I can make a move and invest in something and make some plays. So once I started to realize that that's how people kind of looked at me, I'm like, man, I'm going to lean into that. Network, meet as many opportunities as I can in whatever endeavor. So, my thing happens to be real estate, but I think if whatever your thing is, I think more guys need to leverage that to the best of their ability. And I get frustrated because you see the big names doing it a ton and they get no slack for it. Like, you see Patrick Mahomes buying MLS teams in Kansas City and all these moves. And I think that's great. But it's like the low to mid to high tier, all those guys, they need to be doing the same thing, if not more, because those are the guys you're making good money, but it's probably not generational money. Like some of the quarterbacks are the highest paid guys in the league. They can almost throw their money in bonds and live off of 4%, dividends for the rest of their life because they've made so much. But it's all the guys in between that you've made good money, but if you're spending a lot, it's probably not going to sustain forever. Those are the guys that really need to be leveraging relationships, career-wise, and creating a lane for themselves while they're playing. So then the transition is easy.
Yeah. And you know what? And this is what I want people to listen and really hear, not just listen and kind of take it, but the networking and the fact that you stayed curious and you asked questions. This is what I think it lacks in so many people because they're afraid of asking questions because they're like, oh, I don't know this space. But when you stay curious and we lost Devon for a second, but when you stay curious and when you do that is when that's when you never know what's going to happen. You never know who is going to come into your path. And that's where I think so many people fall short. Because as you said, they feel like they're either too good for it or they're like, I don't know what to do there. And so staying curious and asking those questions are what's going to keep putting people in there. And that's where, again, the stories connect us. The fact that man told Devon the story about, he was a police officer and a teacher. And it was like, wait a second, if he could do that, let me stay curious. Let me ask questions. And that's where people need to capitalize on that curiosity that we have and they have. So I love that so much. I think it's really important.
And the confidence of asking for those meetings, for those luncheons, because Devon is right. Nobody is going to say no. Not one CEO, not one principal, not one president is going to say no to having lunch with a player because it's exciting to pick each other's brains, and to get to that highest level. I think so many players forget who they are and what they do, and they actually get modest, they get insecure or shy. No, ask for those meetings, ask the good questions, and create that group of mentors around you to find out what you want to do next.
Yes.
So do we have to invite Devon back on, or is he good to jump on?
Hold on one second. Let me see invite.
Because I want to talk about his book. I hope we can.
I know. That's what I was going to pivot into that. Like, what made you start the book? There you
are. Great. There you go.
Sorry, guys, I got cut out. I don't know what happened there.
No worries.
We're just talking about you.
Yeah, just talking about the networking and the being curious, how important that is, and how so many people really are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. But like the curiosity and the questions and then the stories that connect us is really like you listen to someone's story and you're like, you know what, that stuck in my mind. And that's what I talk about that's what we talk about all the time is keeping your mind open. Listen, look around, see who's around you, see who you can ask questions to, because you never know who you can learn from. You can learn from a janitor to a CEO of a company because we all have those stories. So that kind of takes me into what made you decide to be like, hey, I'm going to be an author?
Yeah, it's weird. For a long time, I've always had like a vision of writing a book one day. And, my business manager and marketing person, Vanessa, I kind of shared this idea with her, and we kind of took off and ran with it from there. And it really just started out as like, okay, what's the general concept? And it was really about like how I hated the American dream today and how like it's not working for many people, but we're banging our heads against the wall, acting like it's going to work. Had this whole concept. We start to pitch it to potential book agents, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go. I was like, okay, so we found one that liked the concept. I liked the guy. I'm like, okay, let's roll with it. He's like, I'm going to pitch it to publishers. Nothing happens for almost 6 months, and then out of the blue, the agent reaches out to me and has a book deal proposal from HarperCollins, and it's a legit offer, and the ball gets rolling. The next thing I'm like, wow, I'm really about to be an author, and I had to write it during season, so it was like off day and then some evenings, and worked with an editor to help me throughout the process. But I think it's a good story of like, you have to shoot your shot and position yourself in position to be successful. like you could say it was that one thing of me just reaching out to me and Vanessa reaching out to a book agent, but I think it's the work that I put in and the ideas that I had, and I was prepared for the moment. And I think guys need to kind of invest in themselves in that way, because you never know where things could go, and when you're really putting yourself in a position to reach your goals, you'll be surprised at what you could accomplish. I never thought it was going to actually happen, and here we are today. And my book came out a couple of months ago, and I'm one of the only players to write a book while they're playing, and and it's not even a football book, it's a finance book. So I think it was a blessing, but it was definitely something that it's like, man, I dreamt of it a long time ago and it came into fruition. But I feel like my life has kind of been that. I tell a funny story sometimes. I was in the 7th grade and I got a student athlete of the week, and in a little middle school newspaper, I said, I want to go to USC and play in the NFL one day. And I'm in the 7th grade, and my accountant is friends with somebody who sent her that article the other day, and she texted me and was like, "This is crazy. Like, knowing your life now, you literally did everything you said you were going to do in the 7th grade." And manifestation is huge. Like, so
It's real.
creating a vision and having a dream for yourself. So I've kind of am now in the mindset, like, God's kind of shown me enough to where if I have a vision and I have something and I just do things that push me towards that direction, like a book seemed so far out 5 years ago. But I wasn't focused on the book. I'm just going to take little steps every day, move in the right direction, put myself in position to where maybe that's possible. And, people underestimate what they can do in a few years, and, a few years down the line. And now I'm in a position where I have a book, and I'll probably write more. And, it's definitely just, I'm amazed sometimes at like what I've been able to accomplish, but I wouldn't say I've done anything amazing. It's the consistency over time and really kind of staying the course. I think habits are really important, and the habits that you instill in your life. I try to tell that to guys all the time, is like, man, you can take little steps every day and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in a year or two. But people get kind of bogged down because you're not going to see a huge difference in a month or in 2 months, but it's staying the course.
And yeah, it all adds up. The name of your book is exactly what you've been talking about all day. Just kind of like everything that you do is a part of your journey and leads. And if you have the mindset to succeed, and that message, having a book has to be just incredible, but the message that you're sharing is even more important. And I'm sure you have to be thrilled to share that message with not only the NFL community, but all communities.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's so pivotal for, people to just understand. A lot of guys write themselves off, and not just pro athletes, but like you can accomplish so much, and like you don't have to be extraordinary to do extraordinary things. And that's one thing I've realized. I've had a 9-year NFL career. I wouldn't say I'm the best, the fastest, the strongest person, athlete, any of those things, but I've done the right things long enough, and I've done ordinary things well enough that I've been able to accomplish amazing things by doing ordinary things well.
Beautiful.
Yep. And the work ethic. I mean, that's what, something when you have work ethic, and I know it's the consistency, it's the showing up. And as a pro athlete, you have that, right? I mean, you have that, like you're the 1% that really works hard. So I want other people to, that are listening that maybe are not in the NFL community, that are like, okay, but we all can do that. We can all show up for ourselves, because if you don't show up for yourself, what is there, right? Like, we all have one life. And if you're not happy in your space, this is what I say, we're not trees. We're not a tree. We can make the changes, and it's only us that can make those changes. And so if you stay curious, you network, you ask questions, if you have, you daydream, what do you want your life to look like? I call it daydreaming instead of meditating. I walk my dogs, and I daydream. I'm like, hey, what's God going to show me? If what's the universe going to show me? And those little things, and it doesn't matter how old you are, where you've been, we all have those pivots. We just heard Devon's pivots. You guys know Cynthia's and I pivots. This is what life is about. It's about showing up and being better than you were yesterday, and inspiring others to be better than they are yesterday and today. So, Devon, I can't wait to keep following. I can't wait to get your book. And I love your whole mindset. I love what you're teaching and preaching and showing up, because you're showing everyone that you can do something. Again, you dream it, you can make it. If you dream it in your mind, you can make it happen. Don't let yourself be the limitation. So, thank you so much for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread. Cynthia and I are just, honored to have you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. Love to come back on again sometime. And, I love what you guys are doing with Pivot. It's amazing. More guys need to get access to this. And I think it could change lives.
Right. And then to get your book, like I definitely want to lead listeners, and we'll be sharing and linking and putting a few quotes and video clips from this conversation. But like I definitely, in our events that we have our Hall of Fame event coming up in Canton in August. We've got the Super Bowl coming up. Definitely want to get, it all adds up in the playbook. Like, let's share this book. Let's get it out there and let's get it in the right hand. So we'll continue to talk about all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You could buy the book on Amazon or really anywhere you buy books, in store or online, or at my website, www.devonkennard.com. And follow me on social media at Devon Kennard. I'm not hard to find. Just pretty much type my name in anywhere and I'll probably pop up.
Yes, and this will be in the show notes also, so you guys will have those links that you can just click. And this is live on Fireside. It will be out on all the podcast players, your Apple, your Spotify, out in a few weeks. And what we always say is you might have listened to this episode and you might have been like, you know what, this is great. Share it. You don't know who in your life needs to hear this. This is what this podcast is about. This is about the pivots in life. Devon has done extraordinary things in his life. And as he said, he has just taken one foot ahead of me, of the other. That was, again, a little tongue twister.
I love you.
I get so excited. I'm like,
in front of the other.
Exactly. But you guys, we can all do this. Like, we can all be better than we were. So share, like, rate, review. This is also out on LinkedIn. If you guys are listening on LinkedIn, if you're here live on LinkedIn, if you're here live on Fireside, if you're listening to the replay, if you were on YouTube, thank you for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread live on Fireside. Thank you again, Devon, so much. We so appreciate having you.
Thank you, Devon.
Thanks for having me. And last message I got for your guys as followers is, it's not what you got, but what you do with what you got. So, in my book, I talk a lot about flipping the bag in your life, and whatever your circumstances are, maximize them. We all have certain blessings, skill sets, relationships, knowledge. Take those and maximize them to the best of your ability, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. So, just keep at it, everybody. And thanks for having me on again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa,
Yes.
for helping coordinate. You're amazing.
Yes, thank
so
you.
much.
And everyone that joins, share this. Thank you again. And we will see you guys for another episode.